Partnerami podcastu są Double Miss Academy, organizator zawodów IPSC, Strzelnica Playground Gdynia, twoja strzelnica w Trójmieście, Garda Arms Gdynia, sklep z bronią i amunicją.
Welcome everybody to the next episode of Faster and More Accurate, the Polish podcast on IPSC. Today's episode will be once again held in English, as the guest is once again an English-speaking person. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the South African Classic Division shooter and the law enforcement officer in one person, Mr. Albert Wessels. Hello, Albert.
Hello, Nicodem. Thank you very much for having me.
Albert, once again, also thank you very much for accepting my invitation to the podcast. Today, I would like to talk with you about two things. First of all, I would like to talk about IPSC in South Africa, where the latest handgun world shoot has been was held actually 2 months ago, right? And about your job and whether or not the skill you acquire on your IPSC trainings make you a better police officer in South Africa. But before we go through that, I would like to go through two more things. First of all, most of my viewers are from Poland, and maybe some of them are from Europe. So we need to assume that you can be anonymous to most of them. So could you please tell us a little bit more about who Albert Wessels is?
Just another guy who likes shooting. I've been in the sport for a long time, probably longer than you have been alive. I started shooting in 1996.
Nice.
And I've been competing for most years since then. I took some time off to pursue some other sports, but I've always been involved with shooting. And I joined the South African Police Service in 2000. And during that time, shooting has been a big part of my life and of my career. I've always been involved with some kind of shooting, whether it's either sporting-wise or in my job as a police officer. So, yes, I love shooting. I love all parts of it. I like shooting all the types of firearms, but I prefer pistol. And IPSC is my game.
Yeah. And you are a born South African living in Pretoria, for those who don't know.
Yes, born and bred. I have been raised on steak and lamb chops and pop in South Africa. And typical South African male. Love my country, love the sport, love the weather. And been lucky enough to have had the opportunity, mostly due to sport, to see a lot of the world and interact with a lot of people. But yes, I remain in South Africa, and it's my country, and I love it.
Very well. Okay, so the second thing we have to go through is the quick questions section. So for those who don't know, but probably most of the viewers know, that every time I have the guest for the first time on my podcast, I'm asking a short list of short questions that are open and that I require my guest to answer honestly. So are you ready for them?
I am ready. Must I raise my right hand first?
All right. So the first question. These questions can be tricky, and of course you can answer as you understand them, so they are not specified. So let us start. What weapon is best for shooting?
All firearms stopped in 1911, my friend. After 1911, all handguns stopped. You know me, I shoot Classic Division. For me, that is still the best pistol in the world. It's my preferred pistol. But there's no best pistol. There's shooting. And if you can master, it is my belief that if you can master the fundamental of shooting, then you can shoot any pistol well, because it applies to above the board. I think the best pistol is the one that you will train with the most. If you have a specific model or make that you like, and that will make you train harder and train better and train more, then shoot that pistol. That is the best pistol for you. So yes. But
That's
for me,
nice
it's in 1911.
Of course. What else can it be for a Classic Division shooter?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the second question is, do you dry fire?
Yes, I do. I don't do as much as I should, especially after the world shoot. But in every day there's a little bit of dry fire, and I do believe to make new skills permanent is the best way to do it is dry fire. We cannot all shoot enough. It's expensive and it's time consuming, and we don't always have ranges. But there is no better tool than dry fire because you can do it anywhere, anytime. It's very important.
How often do you dry fire? Like on a regular mid-season term?
I would dry fire every day.
Every day. Okay.
Every day. Not maybe for a long extended period. I also do not believe that you can do it for an extended period. But I believe if there's something that I struggle with, I focus my dry fire sessions on what did I struggle with at the last match. So it might not really just be dry firing or pulling the trigger on the gun. Maybe it's a little bit of movement, and I'll be dry firing to get my steps and coming into a position correctly, getting the gun up earlier. But dry fire, and there's always 5 minutes in every day, whether it's before you put the gun in the safe at night or, in South Africa, and in my job, I always have a gun on me. So there's always time to dry fire.
Mm-hmm.
If there's 5 minutes, if it's in my office, or 5 minutes extra on the range, or 5 minutes before I put the gun next to the bed before nighttime, there's 5 minutes that I can do some type of dry fire. So yes, dry fire every day. But for competition stakes, yes, dry fire every morning at 5 o'clock before work.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay,
no,
thank you for
not
that.
Not everybody is, like my friends say, a little bit demented.
Yes. Usually the dry fire is a problem for most of the shooters.
I call it dedicated. Other people call it demented. It's a fine difference. It depends on you ask. Eh?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
Okay, we talked about dry fire and how often do you dry fires, but the next question is, how often do you train shooting? So shooting as live fire.
I try to shoot at least once a week. Maybe get one practice session in the week during midweek time, normally about a Wednesday afternoon. And then I try to shoot at least one match on a weekend, or have another interaction with shooting, whether it's another practice session or going to a local match or something like that. Yes, especially during mid-season.
Okay.
And if I have the ability and have the time, then I will shoot both days of the weekend.
Okay, of course. Yeah. Do you do any kind of I had a podcast episode with Emile Aubrio, and he told me that he's sometimes not shooting at all during winter, and then he is shooting like twice a week. But before the huge competition, like World Shoot, he was shooting every day for 2 weeks, and it was like 20,000 rounds for a whole month. But most of these rounds were done in 2 weeks before the huge competition. Do you do any kind of such crazy sessions sometimes?
No, I can't say that. Unfortunately, my salary does not allow for that kind of spending. But
of course,
I would do, my version of that would be 1,000 rounds a week, and then I would shoot from Monday to Friday if time allows and if work allows. Then I would try to shoot at least 200 rounds a day for 2 weeks before a big match. But yes, that is only 10% of what he manages to do. But it's better than nothing.
Of course. No, 20,000 rounds is even a huge amount for a whole year. So
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. I would love to be able to do that. But yes.
Yeah, on the other hand, you also have to mind the hands, because maybe Emil is not having any problems with his hands, but a common normal person can have problems with the elbows, for example.
And especially if you're a senior like me, then everything is already aching.
You're in a very good shape, so don't be so humble. Okay, next question is, what kind of ammo do you use?
Well, I reload. I reload all of my own ammunition. I use a Silver Rapids bullet, which is 125 grain polymer coated bullet. And then I still load old school. I still load on an old Dillon 550. And I reload all my ammunition for myself. And I use commonly available powders, whatever we can find in South Africa, and primers. And yes, I stand and pull the lever and make my own. So yeah, it saves a lot in South Africa. Reloading is quite common. So I spend the time with my blue girlfriend. I call my reloading machine my blue girlfriend because she's just as demanding and as expensive as a real girlfriend.
Of course. Have you ever thought about having heavier bullets? Because 124 is very standard.
I did try the 147s. I previously, with my previous pistol, I did shoot a lot of 147s only. But it seems that, well, according to my testing done, the 124 grain, my current bull pistol that I shoot, prefers a 125 grain. It just shoots a little bit smoother. The cycling speed to me is a little bit better. And the gun is a little bit more accurate with the 125. So at this stage, I shoot the 125s.
That is interesting because usually shooters say that the heavier the bullet is, the better it feels. Usually, I'm also shooting 124 and I like it, but most of them prefers the heavier bullet, right?
Yes, I do think that. I think it's also when we speak about what we like and what we use, I do believe that you will change during your lifetime. And it's a very big thing for me to constantly be on the lookout for improvement. And for me, during testing, I found that my splits and the way that I perceive the recoil, because the recoil is too fast for us to really understand the difference. Recoil is done a lot quicker but the gun just behaved better for me on 125s. And when I did some testing between 125s and 147s, the gun shot smaller groups. The splits were more even. I just felt that I could control the gun a little better. It felt less sluggish to me. Okay. And previously, I wouldn't have said that. I moved from 124s to 147s. But in the current gun and the current setup, I prefer 125s. And when I started shooting, I would always be looking for a heavier gun, using a heavier gun. And lately, I'm transferring back to a lighter gun. Okay. I just like the way that it transitions. And I think as your understanding of the game changes and your perception of things changes, I think you also change with your preferences. So keep on experimenting, because that's the only way to unlock new growth. If you're going to be stuck with something, you're going to limit your growth as well. You have to experiment.
Super
so as part of my work, if we come back to that, I was involved in a forensic laboratory, especially working in the ballistics laboratory for 17 years of my career as a police officer. And we were trained in scientific methods and constantly being evaluating and testing, and I enjoy doing that. And I find a hypothesis and I test it, and I try to find a drill that shows me something, and then I go with the numbers, because the evidence doesn't lie. Something might feel better, but the evidence on the target says something different. So yes.
Super nice answer. Thank you for that. Next question is funny maybe for South African, but because maybe it's more controversial in Europe. But do you think everyday carry is okay?
Yes.
Short answer, right?
I fully condone it, and I think Jeff Cooper, who was one of our founders of our sport, he said that an armed community is a polite community, because you cannot enforce your will on somebody who is also armed. And if everybody is armed, you have to have a way to protect yourself. We all know that our own governments, doesn't matter where you live, nobody can protect you all the time.
Mhm.
You know, there's an old saying that says, I carry a gun because a policeman is too heavy. You cannot carry a policeman everywhere. But
Yes.
if you have the ability, if you have a firearm on you, you are able to protect not yourself only, but also people around you and your community. And in an age where communism around the world and extremism around the world is commonplace, those people do not believe in the law. It's great if everybody follows the law, but sometimes, and it's great when there's people to enforce the law, and that is what our police and our security forces are for. But they are not always there to protect you. And in that case, you need a way to protect yourself. And everyday carry, and it's not just about being irresponsible with it. Everyday carry is a very responsible choice. If you do something like that, you need to really understand why you are doing it, what you have to do, and what is the lawful implications of doing. And you have to have a good understanding of when you can apply the law, when you cannot apply the law. And you have to change your habits. You cannot just be a party animal and go around, because you have a responsibility imparted on you. Because you have the ways of, you are carrying a potentially lethal instrument on you. Your choices, your reactions, everything needs to be tempered in that manner. And that's why I also say an armed society is a polite society. There is no flying off the handle or overreacting, or doing anything stupid when you have such a big responsibility. But yes, people need to have the ability to protect themselves until the necessary help arrives. And there's no better way to do that than with a firearm.
Brilliant answer. Thank you for that. The last question of the quick questions is, are classes with shooting stars of any use to others?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, in the time that I've spent in the sport and being around in a training environment as well, because I am a trainer in the South African Police Service as well, you know, I have done so many years. Let me explain it this way. In 2015, I had the opportunity to train and to spend 2 weeks with Eric Rafael. And up to that point, I had already shot for many years. In 2 days with Eric, I learned more than I did in 17 years on my own. Just to be able to get that information, you know, and I want to call them the kids of today, like you. You guys, you grow up with YouTube videos and instructional videos and a lot of advice and a lot of being able to see people shoot. In South Africa, we've always been isolated. When I started shooting in 96, there was one VHS tape set of, who was he? A very well-known American shooter. And Jerry Barnard, the Burner series tapes. And you had to have it on VHS. And people that copied those things so many times, by the time that you found a copy, it was terrible and the video quality wasn't good. And you couldn't really learn anything. And we had 1 or 2 old VHS copies of Rob Latham and the Make Ready video and stuff like that. But there wasn't a lot of information. You had to make every mistake yourself. And that would take years and years to do. And you spend years wasting time not learning things. Now you have the opportunity to train with somebody who's made the mistakes, who's participated at the highest level, and he can shorten the learning curve. It took me probably 2 years or 3 years to break 50% in South Africa, just as a normal shooter. And I had people trying to help me, but they also didn't know. They did their best. Now going to classes, and like I say, I've been blessed. I've worked with Eric, I've worked with Chris Tilly, I've worked with quite a couple of really good shooters. And every time that you go and you attend one of these classes, you walk away as a much better shooter. They shorten the learning curve. And it's important. Do not believe, although I believe that YouTube videos, and I've worked with Ben Steger as well, and JJ Rakaza, and you can watch the videos and it's of a benefit to you. But nothing beats having the instructor standing next to you and him adjusting your grip and giving you straight feedback on what you are doing. And when we met up before the World Shoot Now here in South Africa, that week that we could shoot together, that I could shoot with you and Martin and Kitcha and with
Bartosz, yes.
With Bartosz and his mother, I've learned so much from you guys just in that week, being able to shoot with shooters of that skill level. It's not something that we in South Africa get to see a lot. And even though I'm an instructor myself, I'm also always doing the teaching. But just being there and seeing how people are doing that and reflecting on what you are doing versus what they are doing, discussing things, discussing shooting, discussing techniques, and there's a flow of information between all the shooters involved. That was magic. I can tell you what, my shooting, I have so many things to think about now, and adjusting techniques and reflecting in my own training and what I'm doing. It is such a big benefit that and if you cannot go to a good instructor, shoot with better shooters, and you will get dragged along. You will learn. You can also learn from not such good shooters, but the learning curve will be slower. But it's inspiring to shoot with better shooters, and you have to have sometimes we get stuck in, I call it a glass ceiling, especially in South Africa, because we do not have the ability to travel to so many other matches. You always shoot against the same people. But you guys in Europe, and that is my belief, that is why Europeans have increased their shooting ability so much, is that you have many matches not too far away. And you can compete against the top guys in Europe constantly. And that is an incredible advantage that you guys have. And in being able to go and train with the likes of Eric and Emil and all those kind of people that's top shooters. You grow much more than the money that you spend. You will spend 10 times that amount of money that you pay for a class on ammunition and only learn 1% as much. It's incredible value.
Thank you for that. I think it was maybe one of the best quick questions section whatsoever in the history of this podcast. Really, thank you for these answers. They were really deep and nice. I think everybody needs to listen to this. Okay, we've done these two things, so now we can go to the proper topics of this podcast. So part second is IPSC in South Africa. So could you briefly tell us how popular is the sport in your country?
So IPSC in South Africa is gaining in popularity. It is growing. It is a sport that we all try to get a little bit more people involved. We would love to have it a lot bigger because there's a big shooting culture in South Africa. And as a matter of fact, South Africa was one of the first countries to be at the start and the launch of IPSC. At the conference with Jeff Cooper and everybody was, South Africa was one of the founding members of IPSC. And during the years, we've always been very competitive and we always had a lot more people shooting. And it was a big sport. And in the 80s and 90s, the sport was even televised on our national TV. Mm-hmm. But as things have changed, yes, it was in, I still have an old DVD somewhere of whether in our Afrikaans language, they went on an overseas news trip to when the South African team went to the US, I think in 1982. And it was televised how our team members were doing, and they had a big broadcast on it on national TV. So it was a well-known and a well-established sport. And although the sport is strong in South Africa and we have members all across the country, we could do better. But we
Okay.
do compete. We do compete with hunting and National Rifle League, and as with all things, there's a lot of competition in other sporting codes. I do believe a lot of people would like to do the sport, but they don't know about it. We try to grow the sport, and I think it starts with our members and podcasts like these, and trying to make members feel welcome. But a
Mhm.
big part of it is also cost, and then our licensing procedures. Because with my police people, to go back to the South African Police Service, we receive in-service firearms training, and in the police you receive a duty firearm that you are allowed to take home and be even off duty and have at your safe and do everything. But you cannot buy ammunition for that firearm. You only have the ammunition that you are issued for duty. So many of these people would like to get involved in sport shooting, but they do not have the ability because they cannot purchase ammunition. In order to
Okay.
purchase ammunition, they first have to go through a lengthy process, which is the firearms licensing procedure in South Africa, where you have to write a written test, hand in your paperwork, have a background check done. Then you get approved to first own a firearm. Then
Even a police officer needs to do that?
even a police officer, yes. Everybody has to go through the
He's
same process.
basically having the gun, but
Yep.
still needs to go through the procedure.
Yeah. Still need to go through the same process. And then you have to purchase a firearm. And only then, once you have a private license, can you purchase ammunition or reload ammunition. But then also, you cannot use that ammunition in your duty firearm because it's not authorized. The legalities will always kill us. That is our problem.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that is a financial burden for lots of people to get into the sport. And then ammunition in South Africa is quite expensive for the average man. And people need to understand, and I think sometimes it's also maybe a little bit intimidating. You arrive, I can speak out of experience now because I had one of our local club shoots. I had some of my recruits during the week who were interested, and I told them to come and visit the club shoot and come and see what they are doing. And you pitch up, and here you've got everybody in speed holsters and fancy shirts and lots of bling guns with dots on and fancy stuff, and they're shooting very well, which is not quite the level that we are used to in the police. And I think even though the people are friendly and very accommodating, and some clubs, most clubs, I would say most shooters are very accommodating, and we want to have new people into our sport. You look at all the gear and you look at everything else that must happen, and it's a big, expensive financial investment.
Yes.
So I think it's also, especially if you are still struggling on not the greatest salary in the world and you are raising a family and you have other things to do, then it's an expensive investment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is a burden. But the sport is growing. As with all countries and with everything else, I think we are struggling to get newer shooters in. We have a couple of companies who do very good work in South Africa and in promoting youngsters and juniors and super juniors. But once they get and they start their own family, time and money become scarce. And then they return a little bit later, let's say mid-50s, almost 40, once there's a little bit more expendable income and the kids are a little bit older, then they return to the sport. But like we saw at the World Shoot, did you know that at the World Shoot, 51% of the match were seniors?
No, really?
Yes.
I
More than
didn't
half
know
the
that.
match was senior and above.
That is interesting. I haven't
Yes.
checked that.
Yep. You can go and read the stats. It's interesting to see.
So you can say easily that it is now more not that easier to get the topper place while you're a senior than when you're starting
It becomes
regular.
harder. It becomes harder. We are more senior.
And by the way, how many people, members of IPSC South Africa region there is? Do you know?
I would lie to you if I gave you a number. I know where the membership numbers are, but not everybody is active. So
course,
it's
but
not that every year our
just for
numbers
the
change.
but
I
it's
think
just for
I think we
the
have about I think we have about 3,000 members
3,000.
at least. Yes. Not everybody is active, and then a lot of members only don't shoot higher level of competitions. But to say that we will have our national championships oversubscribed, and we normally have at least 350 to 400 shooters at the national championships.
Okay.
So yeah, that for us is quite a big number.
Do you have anything like in Poland? It is very common that many people that used to be on the member list are no longer on the member list because they prefer to only go for level 1 matches, and it is allowed to be outside the region to just shoot level 1 matches. So
yes, a lot of that.
Okay, so you probably have like.
If I look at our club match that we shot yesterday, we had 100 members attending the match, or 97 members attending the match for a little 6-stage club shoot. And of those people, I would say about 20 to 30 will attend the nationals. The rest are level 1 members. But they work just as hard and they are just as serious about their shooting. They are maybe just over 60 or do not want to. They will never miss a club match, but they just maybe do not participate in nationals or maybe even provincial levels anymore. They shoot level 1s, and that's where they are.
Okay.
But
you
they
already
still keep
mentioned
the sport alive.
Once again?
They keep the sport alive.
Yes, of course. This is the same situation in Poland. I mean, we have 1,400 people in the region. Of course, it is everybody, so both shotgun, rifle, and handgun.
Yes.
But it's probably triple the number outside the region, that people who used to be in IPSC and so on. Maybe even more. I don't know. Yeah. You already mentioned how many years you're since 1996, you said, right, in IPSC. So you started IPSC actually before joining the police, right?
Yes, I did. I actually still started when I was in university, and I was still in studying to finish my studies. Yes.
Okay. I would guess that probably the first shooting you did was something more connected with hunting, as it is also very, very popular in South Africa. Is that correct?
In South Africa, you would grow up with your grandfather or your father showing you how an air rifle works, and then once you could show that you were safe enough, then you would be shown out, and you would be out hunting little birds and shooting rats and shooting all kinds of things with an air rifle. And then as you would get bigger, you would have the opportunity to shoot a 22 long rifle. And then once that happens, you would have the rite of passage to become a man by going hunting. And then you would learn from there. And then maybe there would be a little bit of handgun in there. But my father was never much into hunting, but I had an uncle that loved hunting and shooting. And he taught me a whole lot of things. He helped me to reload and teach me how to reload. And he took me hunting, and he let me shoot my first pistol. And once I did that, I was stuck. Then that's when the love started. And from there on, I pursued, and I got more interested in shooting a pistol, especially handguns, and more interested I've always been interested in all types of shooting, but the challenge of shooting a handgun well has always been there for me. So, and I'm still trying to do it.
So, IPSC, I wanted to state as a final question for this beginning, while I asked you about the hunting. Why IPSC finally? So you shot so many other things, and then you learned about IPSC, and you said, "Okay, let's give it a try," or how was it?
You know what, IPSC, you cannot beat the game. It's a constantly changing game. Even though after 30 years, you say you go to any stage, it's something that you've seen before. There's nothing new in shooting. But you cannot beat the game because there's always something that you can improve. It's your draw, your transitions, your accuracy, your speed, your movement. The only thing that I've really seen in many years was when we got to the last World Shoot in Thailand, and when we suddenly had runners that were swingers and had no shoots on. That was something new for us. We never saw that in 30 years. But once you understand the fundamentals of shooting, you could shoot it. And there's always somebody new coming up. There's always something else that you can improve in your shooting. And even though the idea behind stages are the same, there's a way of doing it better. Can I draw the gun better? Can I make more accurate shots? Can I shoot 50-meter plates faster? Can I reload faster? Is there something else that I can do with the optics and production optics getting in there? It changes the game for people like me who cannot see so well anymore. So there's always something new to learn and something new to do. And just the community. I must tell you that the community of IPSC is, I've been involved with many sports. I've shot IDPA, I've shot pistol shooting, the ISSF competition style and Olympic type shooting, and I've done a little bit of clays and all other types of sport. But the community in IPSC is the best in the world by far. People are welcoming you. I go to World Shoots to see my friends. The shooting is a side matter. It's great to be able to test yourself, but the biggest experience is making new friends and meeting people and seeing old friends again. It's magic. The community is magic. And between that and the challenge of shooting better every time, IPSC's got it. There's the excitement and everything else that goes with it. Even after 30 years of shooting, after a stage, my hands still shake when I unload the pistol. The adrenaline dump is still there. So you cannot beat that. Cannot beat that.
100%.
Best game in the world.
100%. All right. Okay, so we know now why you started IPSC and that you really, really love this sport. So let me go to the part 3 of the podcast. I would like to talk about your duty. You're a law enforcement officer, and that's what I said. But for those who don't know, you are a SWAT member, right? So Special Weapon and Tactics.
So now here I need to rephrase that. I am part of or a subject matter expert when it comes to training SWAT members. I am not a SWAT member myself.
But you were.
No, I actually never were. I worked on some specialized units in the years before, but during my time as a competitive shooter, I've developed a set of skills in training and by being trained with other people and operating as a firearms instructor in my normal daily duties. So my career during the police service has changed from working in one unit to moving over to the forensics laboratory and working as a ballistics specialist, analyzing firearms and fired cartridge cases and going to crime scenes and reconstructing and doing all the CSI business concerning firearms.
Like in the movies.
Like in the movies, but it's not in the movies, my friend. The morgue is never as clean. The girls are never as pretty. And the work is never as, and the bodies never smell good.
Oh, yes, of course.
So during all these years, I've seen a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things, and shooting has been a big part of it, because spending a lot of time on the shooting range, you see what bullets can do, what people can do with firearms, how our shooting shows what can happen and how many rounds can be fired, and what's the probability of making a shot from a certain position, and all of these things, the effect of a bullet on a target, and all of that translates directly into my work, because I find and I get experiences on the shooting range which I can translate into my work. And being of a scientific nature that I used to do, I can recreate certain things, because maybe I saw something on a crime scene and I'm not sure of it, but then I design a stage for my club shoot where I can have 100 guys testing my scenario for me, and I can see whether it's possible or not. You know, so it works both ways. And yes, and during this time, I came to the attention of some of the SWAT members, or the SWAT groups that we have, special weapons and tactics groups that we have in South Africa, and they asked me to just help them and address them on certain matters of pistol shooting. And that is now evolved that I get used as a ad hoc instructor for many of the teams when they have the firearms training modules that they do, or when we prepare them for some specific missions or some sporting things that they do. So then I get called in and I will assist them with firearms training.
Okay. I wanted to talk about your duty and your job, because as I said in the very beginning of this podcast, I wonder, and I want to find out with you, how much of this IPSC skills you got from training transfers to the job. You are a shooting instructor, so maybe even more while training the SWAT members. But what is the main benefit of training IPSC if you consider your job?
Absolutely. Just the constant, like we discussed earlier, you know, the constant growth of the game, the constant searching for a better method to do something, a better move, a better way to set up your equipment, a better way to improve hitting your target faster, getting the gun, manipulating the firearm faster, making better decisions, finding a better way to be more effective at shooting the firearm, whether it's a pistol, a shotgun, or a rifle. And IPSC, with its, even now with PCC, getting into submachine guns, everything that the top shooters, because this top shooter will be breaking down every technique to find the most effective way of performing that technique, and to be faster and more accurate than everybody else. Those techniques I take directly from what I learn in the sporting, and I apply them to my training and my teaching, and I teach them to my students. And that makes them a much more effective operator. They understand a better way of, because I think it's an institutionalized problem all around the world, because when I speak to firearms instructors that I know from across the globe, whether it's the US, whether it's in Poland, whether it's in France, whether it's anywhere, the basic instruction has still stopped in 1913, when you stand with one hand on the gun and the other hand in your pocket and you try and shoot a bullseye. We know that dynamic situations do not unfold like that. And there is no better way than to put a person or a shooter under a stressful environment, a simulated stressful environment, than making them compete in competition. You can add stress, you can test them against fellow shooters of their own caliber, and you can find the best way to see if they are effective at performing the fundamentals of shooting. And all shooting is the same. It comes down to proper fundamentals. The guys who are really good just do the fundamentals perfectly every time. I always say, they don't practice till they do it right. They practice till they cannot do it wrong. And there is no greater competition than fighting for your life. And if a police officer needs to employ his firearm in defense of somebody else or if in defense of his own life against a violent criminal, that is the biggest competition he will ever be in. And taking the techniques and the methods that we develop in IPSC makes them win that fight.
Yes.
It is incredibly important for shooting.
But
It
what
is
would
the
you say?
testing bed for everything.
Mhm. But what would you say to, there is often this criticism, and I believe it is also probably common or easy to meet in South Africa as well as in Europe or USA, that I've heard once an interview with a former police officer from Chicago, and he said that when he started USPSA, so basically the American version of IPSC, the colleague officers said to him that don't do this because it will kill you. It will make you killed on the street because paper won't strike back.
Those
And he
people are scared to test themselves because they do not trust their own techniques. They do not trust their own skill. You see, and there's a big difference. And I use an analogy where I say to my operators when I start training them, and when we prepare, is I have been lucky enough and blessed in mine, and I've got an opportunity to work with our top SWAT operators when they participate in the UAE SWAT championships every year. And then I help to prepare them for that competition. And then I tell them, we have to have two hats on. One is our working and operational hat and our tactical hat. And the other one is our sporting hat.
Mhm.
So when we take the sporting hat and we put that on, the techniques that we learn in a sporting environment is not what we will be using in a tactical environment. In a tactical environment, we are not going to run into the middle of the door and shoot all the targets. Then we are going to tactically approach, slice the pie, work in a team operation, and apply tactics. But what we first need to do, and what IPSC will teach you, is about gun handling, which is very important, proper using of a gun and employing the gun, how to draw the gun, how to keep your finger off the trigger while moving, how to engage your target without shooting the hostages, just firing at a rapid pace, but putting effective rounds on target. And it will teach you about engaging multiple targets. It will engage you about how much time do I need to make the shot. People who have never been having or put under pressure or do not understand what their capabilities of making a shot will make the shot too soon,
Mhm.
which is not the correct way. Do I really need to make the shot yet? Or do I still have time, which is more effective for policing? You don't go around being people who've never been put in a stress situation, do not know how they will react to it. Now
Yes.
they are scared and under stress, they might fire a shot too early when maybe they could have held back a little.
Mhm.
And having the confidence and ability to say that when I draw this pistol or when I employ this rifle or this submachine gun, I know that I can make that crucial shot under the testing circumstance and be accurate.
Mhm.
And that is massive in a tactical situation. So IPSC will teach you how to shoot. It doesn't matter how good you are tactically and how good you can move through a building and clear rooms. If you cannot hit your target, you are useless. IPSC will teach you how to shoot. And once we have a good shooter, it's easy to put tactics in. But it's not so easy to teach people how to shoot well.
Yes.
It takes time and dedication.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Mm.
So yes, I believe that IPSC is of a benefit to all, and especially to people who might have to employ a firearm in a stress environment. And that includes everybody. That includes security officers, that includes CPOs and everything. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, they receive a basic amount of training and they believe that they have now found the Holy Grail. After 30 years, I can tell you that every day I go shooting, I learn something else. And most days, I relearn a lot of stuff that I know. But I need
Mhm.
something to shake me up, to tell me, Visual patience is a thing. Moving the trigger correctly is a thing. Gripping the
Yes.
gun correctly is a thing. I have to aim for every shot. I cannot shoot as far. I can only shoot as fast as I can aim, not as fast as I can shoot. People do not understand that. So yeah,
And what would you say about the stress? Because the pressure on the competition is something,
yes,
but it is usually also criticized that it is nothing comparing to the stress situation you can have when the situation is, I don't know, during, for example, the duty as a law enforcement officer, or when you're attacked by a mob.
I
So what
agree.
do you say about it? Okay.
I agree with that, and I also disagree with that because you know, on our first day of the World Shoot, are we all stressed? Even the top
Yes.
guys, even the top guys like Eric and Christian Saylor, and everybody stresses off. You know, if you spend the time and effort of traveling to an international match after you have taken away a lot of family time, a lot of personal investment, a lot of time, that's a different kind of stress. But there is a lot of stress having people expect you, rightly or wrongly, in your mind to perform to a certain level. It's a massive stress thing. Having to know that you are in the running for a medal or not, there's a stress that comes with it, an expectation of performing. And I can tell you now that with my experience of seeing top grade operators who I know the previous day went into an armed situation where there were shots fired in anger, and they were all cool, calm, and collected, and they managed that because they do that a lot. But the next day, to prepare them for an event, I put them in a club shoot, and I can see that the pressure of somebody else watching them perform gets to them, and they shake, and they rattle, and they fall apart just like everybody else. So it might not be the same stress, but it's a way of inoculizing you or getting you used to performing to a high level under stress. You cannot
Yes.
expect somebody who drives a taxi the whole day to go and ride an F1 race. It's the same thing. But an F1 racer will be a lot more calm driving a taxi every day in a busy street because he's used to it's a different kind of pressure, but maybe it's a higher level of pressure. Getting stressed and getting tested under pressure, whether it's from competition or in a tactical sense, being exposed to pressure will be a lot more beneficial to everybody. And in South Africa, unfortunately, we have such a high level of crime rate and so much work for our tactical teams that they do get exposed to a lot of pressure situations. But in other teams in the world and other policemen in the world, they do not get the same amount of call-outs or stress inoculation. They might have one or two situations in their whole career. And then at least by participating in a high-pressure sport like IPSC, they will be much better prepared for when that day comes.
Yeah.
So yes, I do
Super
believe that.
interesting remark.
Yep. And it works both ways. Pressure is in many ways. But being tested under pressure constantly, which you can do every weekend at a match, will translate beneficially to when you need to do it under live fire. And I can tell you in the times that when I was still employed in uniform and doing those kind of things, that you have a better awareness of what you can do. So you can remain calm much better and think clearer and know that if something else should happen during the situation, I have the ability to defend myself or the people around. You are not in a panic state and now suddenly worrying, but will I be able to make the shot? Will I not be able to make the shot? How much time do I need to get the gun out of the holster? When's the last time I drew this gun out of the holster? Those things, it teaches you skills and it translates between both areas. Yes. I think it is very beneficial to law enforcement work.
So you said that for the a police officer in South Africa, it can be a little bit hard to start training IPSC because of the procedure. So he can have his gun, but he's not allowed to buy the ammunition. So when he is allowed to buy the ammunition, he's not allowed to use it in his gun for police duty. But do you recommend your fellow officers to join IPSC community, these guys that you're training? And is it common in South Africa, or is it more like in your unit because of you?
No, I think we are lucky that we have a good base of South African police service shooters. And not everybody might be going to the highest levels, but they will participate in their local clubs. And because of the efforts of the practical pistol IPSC section in the South African police, we have grown our shooting community massively. At one stage, we had a lot more members, but at that time, the police would still issue every member with 200 rounds to participate in sport shooting per month.
Okay.
And 200 is not a lot, but it's a good starting point.
Yes.
And then unfortunately, due to budget cuts and all those kind of things, these things went away. But when people, and that's again where I say the goodness of the IPSC community comes into play. Many times when new people are interested, we will assist them and we will say, come to the club. I will bring you a firearm and I will bring you ammunition. And you can buy the components, or we will assist you in having you being able to compete until you can finalize the process. And people will help out their fellow police officers, because it's, your blood is blue. It's our community. It's my brothers and sisters under the badge. And we all help each other. And so the community has grown. And at our yearly police national championships, we will have 140 people who will be willing to pay out of their own pocket, invest their own time for the competition fee, plus pay their own expenses for their meals and for their accommodation. And they will travel to be able to compete. And those people all started somewhere. They had to buy their own gun, and our people help each other. So we always encourage people. And sometimes you find a willing commander who sees the benefit, and especially with like my higher type guys, their commanders will issue them ammunition and give them permission to go and attend the match because it's part of their training. They get used to weapons handling and instructing and shooting in a competitive environment, because it helps his members to perform better. And slowly but surely, we will turn the tide and we will get back to where we were. So I still believe there is more hope, and we are constantly growing the community. And it's because of the goodness and the kindness of the community that these things happen. So yes, and if somebody's interested, I always say, look, I give them the facts beforehand. I don't want to break your heart. You come into this and you think it's all going to be for free. It's not going to be for free. You have to do some steps. But if you are willing, we will assist you and we will get you there.
Yeah.
And it is working.
That is also awesome information.
Yeah, we always try and grow it. Every year we get more.
And one more question, because you mentioned about this competition for law enforcement officer, and there was 140 members, taking part into this competition. It was the IPSC style competition only dedicated for the law enforcement, or was it a bigger match with separate law enforcement rank, so to say?
No, so for us it would be the South African Police National Championships, which is the biggest match for the South African police members. And every year it's hosted by a different province, or depending on whose province can appoint that. And then we have all the qualifying police officers who can attend this match. And this match, the overall and the prizes will only be going to police officers, active law enforcement people. But we make it an effort to invite certain other state agencies. So we have one or two other state agencies that compete. They also, in the same effort, will make their own, they will compete in the same match and they will participate with us and they will have their own scoring structure. That's the beauty of practice scorers, that you can tag them in and filter them out. And then as a way of increasing and expanding the knowledge of our shooters, we will invite special guests. So we will invite the top open shooter, because for us, we all try to get people to shoot their duty pistols or a production type pistol, because it's similar to what we use on duty. And we will invite a top open guy to come and shoot with us, because he will be translating skills and he will be breaking through the glass ceiling and showing people that might not have access to top shooters like that. Maybe he's in a smaller province where nobody owns an open gun. Now he gets to experience the full fire-breathing dragon, which is a very good open shooter. And we will invite other top shooters. And it's always great to see how these top shooters have a positive influence on our members. They will speak to them and they will discuss, why is he using this? What is this pistol? I've never seen this before, because I've only maybe seen Berettas and PX4s and M9s, and now you have a KMR. What is a KMR? Where does it come from? Damn, that shoots amazing, and it lifts up the level of our match. But it is our prestige match, and we put a lot of effort into it. And we have a proper function on prize giving night. Everybody wears their official blazers and their national colors. And this match, we will also select a national South African Police Service team, which later in the year will compete against our National Defence Force team.
Okay.
And we call that the Inter-Forces Championships. And again, that is also, a prestige match. And for many of our members that do not have the ability to shoot or do not attend world shoots or level 4s or level 3s, this is the biggest match of their year. And it's a big thing. And we treat it as such. And yeah, it's a prestige thing. And I can tell you now that it is a highlight of my shooting career every year. I've been going there for 25 years and I still love that match every year. The greatest opportunity.
I think this is a great benchmark for Polish police, maybe other Europeans, or maybe even in the United States
Yes,
police.
absolutely. And in the past, this match would also select a team that South Africa would send to the International World Police and Fire Games.
Yeah.
And the International World Police and Fire Games is the second biggest games in the world, next to the Olympics Games. It's actually bigger than the Commonwealth Games. You have like 20,000 active police members and fire members and law enforcement officers competing in many sports, and practical shooting was part of that. And then unfortunately, South Africa hasn't participated for many years, but I had twice had the opportunity to participate there. And in those two times, South Africa won the team competition. So our members could really perform very well. And then we would have the people like Miroslav there, and the top European guys, and Eduardo de Cobos, and well-known shooters in the international stage who are police members who would also shoot in that match. And it's a great way. And we are still working on the opportunity to trying to get an international team to come and participate in our police championships. And I'm sure we are going to do that soon, to be able to invite another international members to compete against our national members. And that would be the growth, and next big growth and jump for our game, the police.
I can tell you, I keep my fingers crossed for you then, guys, because
Thank
it's
you,
really, it's really a nice thing to hear. Really, it's a good benchmark, I think.
Thank you. We try.
Yes. Listen, we're actually a little bit over 1 hour right now. As promised, I said I will only steal 1 hour of your life.
No, that's not a problem.
Yes, so it's time to slowly finish. Thank you very much for this participating once again, because every section was really, we done it really thoroughly, and I'm really satisfied with all your answers. I hope they will be very inspiring to the viewers, maybe also police officers from Poland, because I would also like them to attend matches more frequently than as it is right now. And let us hope they will listen to what you said.
I hope so. I really hope so. And I believe that wherever people, and especially police officers, may hear this, may they also be inspired and to expand your horizons and to get involved in shooting, meet the community, and get yourself better so that at the end of the day, you can return to your loved ones and you can perform your duty at a much higher level. But always be able to return home safely.
Thank you so much.